Welcome to Uninterrupted, the podcast from Forbes Cybersecurity, where we dive into the world of technology, cybersecurity, and IT solutions. We help your business stay protected and ahead of the curve by providing the information you need to stay safe. Whether you're a business owner, IT professional, or just tech curious, this is your go-to source for staying informed and staying secure. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uninterrupted, the cybersecurity podcast from Forbes Cybersecurity and IT Services. I have Dan back with us today, and we are going to talk into a topic that he really has a lot of experience in, and that's penetration testing. Dan, go ahead and tell him hi.
Hey, how's it going?
So you're a certified penetration tester. You've had experience doing this. Kind of walk us through what a penetration test is and, why would somebody maybe want to do it?
Yeah. So basically, a company will, talk to me and say, we want to enter into a contract, and here's what we want you to test. So they basically give me an idea of the boundaries that I'm allowed to work within, and we even define what I'm not allowed to do. I want to get permissions to touch certain things within the network and do certain things. But we really define the scope of it. What are we trying to get out of it? And once we've done that, you start doing everything a hacker would, starting off from recon. You want to figure out how you're going to get in, how you're going to deploy it, how you're going to move laterally, escalate, do all the different things that a hacker does.
So we're basically unleashing a good guy hacker into a network to see what a real hacker would do and exploit. Right.
And it's nice to do it that way because, this person's actually being paid to care about not disrupting certain things.
Right, because if I'm a hacker and I break it, oh, well, I broke it, right? But we have a vested interest in making sure that it continues running, right, because we can only take things down so much.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I have a lot of people that come to us and they talk about penetration tests. There's a lot of things that go on with the industry that say you need it. Depending on your compliance program, you have to do so many penetrations a year. If you're a larger company, you might have to do that. And what they're looking for when they come to us is testing the network to make sure their cybersecurity is working. What I'll see, though, is people will come to this, and when we ask them, have you done any of the prerequisites that you maybe want to have done before a penetration test, they haven't. And so would that make sense for them to do a penetration test then if they haven't even done anything to really shore up their cybersecurity house in the first place?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, why?
You basically want to find out what a baseline is in your environment, and getting those things shored up is what you're wanting to find out. You don't want to find out things that you already know.
Well, penetration tests are expensive.
Yeah.
Right? They take time, they take expertise, there's knowledge that has to go into them. Even if it's a automated penetration test, which we'll get to later, I don't really consider those to be 100% real pen testing, although some recent things that have happened in the news maybe might change that a little. But
results the same.
Right, results the same, right? But if you haven't shored up your house and found the obvious things, then you're going to pay a bunch of money to a person with a ton of knowledge to go through and say, okay, well, these are all the minor things that you should have done that could have been caught through some other method than a penetration test, right? They might be good for your business leadership. Say you're having a business leadership problem. They don't understand how vulnerable they really are. So in that case, if you're having issues with them not wanting to spend money on cybersecurity, a penetration test might be a good idea to get them to realize what their issues are and maybe move on from there. But if you're not having that problem, generally if you're looking for a penetration test, you realize you do need some cybersecurity and you should get that shored up before you do it.
Yeah. Another great thing about it is also seeing how, like if you have a network group, just get to see what they're going to see.
Right.
What kind of alerts they're going to get. And that's one of the things that we always try to do is go in as silent as possible and try to get in. But you want to get louder and louder and louder just to see what threshold does the network administrator go, whoa, I found something.
Well, and I think an audit, when we do an audit at a company, I do a full risk assessment at a place before we work with them. And we do some minor hacking type items in that we will poke around and see where it tells us now.
Yeah.
We will run kind of noisy software that should generate logs for your existing IT or your existing cybersecurity to maybe find. Now, there's engagements where we can't do that and say, hey, like we're not going to do a noisy audit because they're They don't want to have those alerts generated. But at a normal place, when they want to have a normal audit through and everybody's above board and they know this is happening, I'm going to look at it. And when I do my scanning and I do my look for PII data and I look for these sorts of things, I want to find out, does a user have permission to something that they shouldn't have?
Okay.
If we look through the principle of least access, only certain people should have access to the certain data, right? So I'm going to look and see if it tells me no. But one of the things is there's items that we will generate virus scan logs potentially. Does your security operations center or does your system alert you that this thing is going on?
Yeah.
These are similar things that you'll end up happening with a penetration test, but if you do a correct audit before that, you should know these things that would be found out with you.
Yeah. Like I've turned on my Kali Linux machine.
Oh yeah.
Within minutes. Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's me. And I mean, there's some things like if you ran Wireshark on your network, would you find it?
Right.
And there's probably a lot of places that wouldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
an employee could be running Wireshark and seeing everything going across your network.
Yeah. And if you don't understand what Kali Linux are or Wireshark is, this is something that you should probably have an IT firm or an IT company doing this for you. As we've talked in the past, it's hard to vet out IT people if you don't know the tools and technology and terminology that they do. Kali Linux is a hacking tool. It's an operating system that has a bunch of preloaded hacking software on it that certified ethical hackers and pen testers use in order to search for these weaknesses in a network and exploit them in order to see. We have to use the same tradecraft that a hacker would use in order to see where we could potentially get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's lots of tools out there too that you could buy. I mean, they're out there and available for $50, $60 that you walk up to a computer, plug it in, and it runs a script and downloads all of your passwords from Netscape. I mean,
From
boggles.
Chrome or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is when you plug that thing in, it thinks it's a keyboard, right? And so your antivirus software might not see it, and likely it won't.
Yeah.
So then, how are you spotting data exfiltration? How are you spotting those things? How are you protecting physical access to those devices? And in certain situations, does it make sense to block down the USB ports? That's by case basis, and that's a conversation between the business leadership of the needs of cybersecurity, not just for your organization as a whole, but sometimes on a specific endpoint perspective, right? Yeah.
It doesn't work when I put it in my.
Right. Yeah. What are some interesting pen tests you maybe have done in the past?
One was really fun. They just told me, "Can you break into my place?" And
So kind of like physical access, right? Yeah.
just physical access. So I got to stalk somebody. I just randomly chose somebody, and they went to the same lunch place every time, and stood behind them in line and used an RFID cloner, which was $25 on Amazon at the time. I think you can still buy it, Keezy, out there. And it's a legitimate tool that you can use to copy RFID tags and
To program new cards and all kinds of stuff like that, right? Yeah.
So, but you can copy it if you get close enough, and I was able to get in. So I ran in, put my card on the CEO's desk, and ran out of there because the alarms were going off.
Yeah. You say legitimate tool, and that's like a really interesting thing to keep in mind, is that the tools that hackers use and the tools that penetrations testers use or IT use, sometimes the only difference between those tools is intent.
Yeah.
A lot of them are the same systems that we look at, and this is one of the things that makes cybersecurity so difficult is TeamViewer, and I pick on TeamViewer a lot, right? It's the software that we don't use, but it's a very prevalent remote access software. Yeah. TeamViewer in the right hands is a very powerful business productivity tool that you maybe want your people to use. TeamViewer in the wrong hands can give remote access to a criminal to have access to your system and to your network and do data exfiltration and all kinds of things like that. So this is what makes cybersecurity these days so difficult is you have to try to figure out the intent behind the behavior that's happening to look for, when I go on the defensive side of what you're trying to do, we're looking for the indicators of compromise to say, hey, there's somebody like Dan in here doing something. Is this an audit happening? Is this a penetration test happening? Or is this a threat actor actually doing legitimate bad things on a network?
Yeah.
Right.
And like I run scripts and things like that on the network, and we have to have some mechanism in place to know that it's a legitimate script being run by a legitimate person versus, we have to know those things.
Right.
So there is some give and take of trying to find that balance between giving somebody everything they need versus the opposite of it. And I think doing the opposite is the better policy. And giving them what they need to do their job opposed to giving them everything and taking away.
Yeah. And even better is what they need when they need it. If you can do that real-time access, which is kind of a more difficult thing, and we see a lot of small, medium business struggle with because it's a little bit more difficult to manage. But the idea is not to have mistrust in your people.
No.
The idea is to say, what if somebody who's not my person gets access to this device? What can they do then? Right? And so that when we talk about the 3 bad things from happening, we talk about getting access to the financials or stealing the money directly that way or getting in the middle of a financial transaction. When we talk about stealing sensitive data and blackmailing you for those sorts of things, or we talk about getting in the middle of your operations and encrypting you and shutting that down, any of those things are meant to get a financial transaction, some kind of money into the hands of the hacker. Now, the difference of what we do and what Dan does or any kind of penetration test is that you don't want to, you're still looking for the same things. How would I get to the same things that a criminal is looking to get to? But in our case, we're looking to say, now we know these vulnerabilities exist. And vulnerability in the term of not, hey, this is an unpatched system, but that maybe somebody at the front desk accidentally has access to the finance folder and they shouldn't. That's a vulnerability. And then maybe not one that people think about. Or we thought the front door was locked and it's not, right? Those are all vulnerabilities that could potentially cause one of the 3 bad things to happen. And so how quickly do you detect and then respond and recover to that scenario becomes the idea. When Dan does a penetration test here at Forbes and we see that Kali Linux come online, I'm alerted out with a certain period of minutes. We say, okay, well, you're plugged into this connection. We disable that connection and he writes it down in his log of that's how this penetration test would be stopped, right? So the idea is not that this thing didn't happen at all. It's how quickly was it responded to and recovered from so that the actual bad thing didn't happen. And that's lateral movement or data access or whatever, right? Yeah. Any other kind of examples of so that's a physical pen test. Kind of the one of the things with a physical pen test is we've often heard jokes that if I walk in with a ladder, I can get to anywhere. If you have a Spectrum or an Alta Fiber shirt, like pretty much anybody will let you back into a server room or anything like that. How non-physically, what would you say from your experience of doing pen tests? How hard is initial access?
For me, it's been very easy. I mean, I walked in with white overalls and just walked straight back to the server room.
But even digital initial access, how difficult is that? Like, are people giving away information online, that kind of open source intelligence gathering OSINT that would cause you to be able to get access to a system?
I've only failed twice in getting credentials. I mean, probably 10 to 15 times I've actually been given passwords over the phone.
Right.
Just saying, hey, Bob told me to give you a call, and he really wants me to get this password for him because he's trying to get into it. He's got you give this sense of urgency, and you really. And I've looked online. I know their name. I know, hey, I heard you just got back from vacation because they've got something on Facebook, and really sell it.
Somebody else from the company told me to talk to you about this. I mean, all kinds of stuff, right?
And you try and you just make it, hey, and you're nice and polite, and most people are willing to help you. But there's been times where, I don't see your name on the list. I'm sorry, my job is to not give this information to someone who's not on the list. So you have those policies in place that make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And I think a lot of business owners that I talk to or business leaders, they think that they live in a castle, right? They think that they've bought the firewall and they have the spam filter and they have the EDR antivirus and they live in the castle with the sentries walking around and that they're gonna stop anything from getting through. And that's just not been my experience, even from a non-penetration hacking standpoint, because we see the aftermath of that. We see companies that call us who have spam filters, firewalls, EDR antivirus, maybe some multi-factor authentication, and they get hacked. They're fully encrypted because they're not looking for the enemy within the walls. Yeah. And
there's also it seems like there's a sense of that's just paranoid thinking.
Right.
I don't want to. That's never going to happen.
well, I'm too small.
Yeah.
Right. That's often the big retort that we hear is I'm too small. It's never going to happen to me. That happens to large organizations. And what we've seen is that you're not on the hacker's radar until you are. And then when you are, there's a laser focus on you. And that might be one of your employees gets phished by some method, or they do something where somebody that they interact with in their emailing life gets their business email taken over, and now you're interacting with a hacker and not the end user that you had a high trust in. People go online and they download things, and that is legitimate, needed for business to function, is for them to go online and download things. But you do not know the legitimacy of the other side of that transaction ever. You can't guarantee that website wasn't taken over by a hacker and that link changed in between you clicking on it. So we have to allow risk through the system. We have to allow risk through the network, and initial access is a lot easier than you think.
Yeah, it's just being able to recognize what those risks are, measure out what you're willing to take, and do something about the ones you're not.
Right. So we talk a lot about penetration tests, and I'm a firm believer that there's a big difference in an audit and a penetration test. Words have meaning. We see a lot of companies offer penetration testing, and what they're really doing is a glorified vulnerability scan. They're not even really doing an audit like we do an audit. They just run some software on the computers and they say, hey, do a scan. From my thought process, a penetration test is actually executing some of the vulnerabilities that you find to see now how far you can get and what you can exploit. What, is that kind of part of your experience as well?
Yeah, for me, the penetration test is actually kind of going through the paces. It's not just a scan to find the vulnerability. It's actually exploiting it and seeing what type of systems are in place to recognize that vulnerability. And how quickly is your team going to be able to recognize it and do something about it. So it's more of a simulation than just a scan.
But it's also creative, right?
Oh, yeah. And it definitely takes the creative mind, that I think, in a lot of ways, artificial intelligence hasn't completely mastered yet at this point. It may.
It's getting closer, yeah.
But I think that eventually AI is going to be really good. I think we've seen things in the news recently where it's done some
I think the first real start to finish AI hack happened that we've known about, right? Where generative AI, the hacker's version of generative AI, did the entire chain of the attack. It started at initial access, and it moved all the way through lateral movement to data exfiltration to encryption. And it did it without human interaction. The AI did it. So that's a thing. I wonder, though.
And it also tricked an artificial intelligence that shouldn't have done that.
Right, yeah. But I wonder if the kill chain would have been in place, looking for the correct things, looking for the right lateral movement, if they would have had the systems and procedures that we have on the systems that we protect, if it would have been able to get that far, right? Because I think of kind of two different ways of this, and I come from a music background. There's classical music where you're playing exactly what's on the page, right? And then there's jazz where you're doing improvisation and things like that. And so a human will improvise. Right. As of right now, a human will improvise better than a machine will. Right. AI is going to be doing some form of really closely playing what's on the page. And even when you're doing classical music, there's interpretations of what you're reading and doing things like that, but you're still within a box. Right. And AI is still kind of like a little bit within a box, whereas a human will say, okay, I see this. What's a way that I could break through this? And you can be collaborative with your teammates that are doing that sort of thing and go from there.
Yeah, where the AI is just a if-else, if it hits a wall, it doesn't know what to do, but a human goes, hey, I'm going around this.
Well, it's trying to predict the next word, right? It's trying to predict the next thing. Which is good. It can be useful and do things. We have a automated AI penetration test that we can run at places, and which is awesome. Yeah, I think it's great, right? I mean, it's helped identify things and find things, but it's still, I believe, a tool that should be used in conjunction with a human to do penetration test. It just depends on what your goal of a test is. Do I want to check a text box that says, yes, technically I've done a penetration test to meet my compliance, or do you want to actually do it? Can you afford to do it in the real scenario to do what it's designed to do, and that's identify weaknesses in your system that you didn't even know you had, right? And what we see is with these AI tests, they often don't do that. They don't show those sorts of things.
the people side of things, the social engineering is a huge aspect of it as well. Just being able to, it's amazing how much information and a lot of
they'll just give you. Yeah. We joke about don't be Midwestern nice, right? Just because somebody asks you for something doesn't mean you have to say yes. You can say no, and it might be better for everyone involved if you do say no, not only yourself and your company, but sometimes for the person that's calling, to make sure that, say it's a normal person, it's not a hacker, but somebody's now asking you for data that you should not release. You're technically putting them at risk by giving them information that they shouldn't have, by putting information that they shouldn't have on their computer, or if you email the wrong file to them or things like that, you technically have put them into some business risk because they may be liable for the information that they collected.
And if you're in a position where you don't know if you're allowed to do that, you should be. Everything that if you're allowed to give information out, you should know who you're allowed to give it to and who you're not allowed to. And if you don't, you should ask your boss to define it.
Well, and we get that's the part of it that's hard, and that's the piece that, as we talk from compliance sides of things and that side of the house, is knowing what data you have, where it is, why you have this data, what you should do with it in order to be good stewards of the data that you have, is very difficult for a lot of business owners to wrap their heads around, because the data normally isn't their business in their eyes.
You're getting into the best practices of a framework, which is tell you, know what you have.
Right.
That's the first two.
Every single framework we've ever seen leads you to that, scenario, whether it's NIST 800-171, the cybersecurity framework, the CIS controls. It doesn't matter. It's basically know what you have. Know
the software,
the hardware, anywhere where data could be stored, what the data is, what its classification of the data is, and who should have access to it. And if you don't know where it is, then you can't know what it is. And so it's kind of a circle where you have to know all this stuff and get that information. But that's why they're asking you to do it.
And how can you protect it if you don't know what's there?
Well, and we call it the non-sexy things of cybersecurity, right? Where it's the work. We all love tools. I mean, I've talked about tools in the past, and I love tools, man. If I can find some shiny new object that makes our lives easier, we'll do it. But we've taken steps back now and saying, okay, what are the people and processes first to know a thing, and then is there a tool that can go and do that?
Right.
So one of the other things I want to touch on really quickly is a penetration test. If we are doing your cybersecurity, should we be doing your penetration test?
I think it'd be better if you went somewhere else.
Yeah, I think it depends on the needs of the organization. But if you really want to do that and get the knowledge out of what's going on, you need to have a third party come in and take a look and say, hey, this is what's going on. These are the holes in the network, and we will welcome being surprised. Yeah. Because I would rather be surprised by somebody who's ethical and has a good engagement to do that sort of thing than a hacker surprising us. We think we have a very robust system, but we need to know. That's why we do penetration tests here and all those kinds of pieces. When I look at doing a penetration test versus an audit, like I said, I think words have meaning. If you think you need a penetration test, reach out to us. That's something that we can help you with. We will sometimes tell you, and we will go through the questionnaires and go through the process and find out, do you really need a security assessment done first, a risk assessment done first, because you have not done the floor for a penetration test. I don't want to engage with you on a pen test if I'm going to find a bunch of low-hanging fruit that I could have found in another method that would be less intensive for us, less expensive for you, all those sorts of things. I know penetration tests will make us more money, but my goal is the cybersecurity of your organization, not just lining Forbes's pockets with as much of your gold as possible.
Let's not pull out the machine gun when a flash water work.
Right, yeah, let's find out what your actual vulnerabilities are and work that way. Yet again, I'm John with Forbes Cybersecurity, Dan here. If you want to reach out to us and talk to us, we are happy to have that conversation. Please reach out. If you have any questions about your business cybersecurity, if anything sparked your interest, please go on our website and fill out the contact us form. We'll get right back with you on those sorts of things. Give us a call, 513-494-4444, and just let's have a conversation, because my goal is to protect your business as much as possible. I want your business to be profitable. I want it to be functional, and we can't do those sorts of things if a hacker comes and wipes it all off the table. So please reach out to us. Thank you for coming to Uninterrupted. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Uninterrupted, a podcast from Forbes Cybersecurity. We hope you walked away with practical insights to protect your business and stay ahead of the latest cyber threats. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your colleagues. For more tips, resources, and cybersecurity updates, visit Forbes.com, that's 4bis.com, and follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. We'll be back soon with another episode, so stay vigilant and stay uninterrupted.